I'm Scott with ULR Properties. In this video today, I'm going to talk about the Home Builder Confidence Index. Its official name, lesser known, is the National Association of Home Builders Housing Market Index. It's a long one. After I talk about what that actually is, we're going to basically talk about the numbers that came out on April 15th. And then we're going to talk about what those numbers might mean for the future of housing and most importantly prices, which everybody wants to know, keeping in mind that I don't have a crystal ball. So what is the Home Builders Confidence Index? The best place to start is to actually go to the National Association of Home Builders website, nahb.org. A few things to note. The survey was started actually back in 1985. That's about 35 years ago. I actually looked this up. That's when CDs first came out. I'm not talking about certificates of deposit. I'm talking about compact discs. So the NAHB send out surveys to its members, which are home builders, spread throughout the country. And keep in mind that these are home builders. They're in the market every single day. Their livelihood depends on their ability to gauge the market. So it's not just, a survey filled out by some consumers. The surveys go out to, like I said, all across the nation, and there's 4 different regions that they break it up into. If you actually go to NAHB, you can see the different regions. You can actually see your local market. The regions are the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and the West. Seems like they're leaving out the Northwest, pretty big market, Seattle, Portland. I guess they aren't that important. I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised to see if they actually add the Northwest in the future because those markets are becoming so huge. And I don't think you can really compare, Seattle and Portland to Los Angeles and the Bay Area down there. It just seems like it'd be nice to break that out. Once the home builders answer their questions on the survey, they send it back to NAHB, which compiles it into a index. So let's look closer at the actual how that survey is comprised. If you go to nahb.org, you can actually see their methodology, and we'll take a look at that right here. So here you can see how the survey actually breaks it out. They have, and then kind of down at the bottom of this second paragraph, you can see what the weighting is. But the questions involve the present single-family sales, the single-family sales for the next 6 months, and traffic of prospective buyers. So you're getting a feel for what's actually happening in-house in the home builder's sales office, and then also, with the traffic, meaning buyers that are coming in, or how good is the buyer traffic that's, whether they're stopping to come in their models or given their office phone calls and asking about future projects. You can see that they weight the present sales by far the most, so that's what's actually happening right when they're getting their surveys. But they're putting over a quarter of the weight towards traffic too, so that traffic, even though it's happening now, that's, those people, were they to pull the trigger on a home sales, that's actually, sales in the future in this next quarter. So it's a pretty good indicator of kind of what's to come in addition to what the current snapshot is. So now that you understand how they actually create the survey and where their numbers come from, let's talk about the numbers that just came out on April 15th. So I actually got phone calls and emails from clients. A couple of our agents actually sent me text messages. Hey, I have clients asking about this. So it definitely set some people off because the headlines were pretty serious. There were definitely headlines coming out that said, the Home Builders Confidence Index fell by the most ever, and largest single month fall in 35 years. So definitely a huge, a bad number that came out on April 15th. And let's take a look at that. So here are the raw numbers, and you can see it's not an exaggeration, it's pretty bad. You went from March, and we'll just take it by the region. You started in the Northeast, you went from a March reading of 64 to a 19, huge plummet. That's a third of what it was last month. So in 1 month, just a massive fall. Midwest, a little bit better, but not much, 25. The South, I think probably the South and the West pretty much the best, which is kind of indicative. Those are stronger markets even going into the coronavirus. But definitely a massive fall, and we've never seen a change like that so quick. Now, it didn't take very long for Wall Street and the Federal Bank to figure out that this index actually was pretty good at predicting some key things about the economy. Of course, there were some economists that did some studies and through econometrics and found that it actually does indeed have a high correlation to home starts, basically homes that are starting to be built, which has an impact on supply. And then that old supply and demand curve driving price is pretty key. So a lot of things can be taken from this. While it doesn't always predict exactly what's to come, it a lot of time goes right in lockstep with home starts. Leading up to the 2008 crash, it actually was slightly ahead. So meaning the home builder confidence index dropped before you saw pricing and the housing starts really drastically drop going into 2008 and 2009. As you can see on the chart, that the home builders confidence index was about 2 to 3 months ahead of the actual falls in starts. So after looking at that chart, you're probably thinking, let's tie this up in a bow, Scott. The housing market's gonna go the way of the builders confidence index. But it's not quite that simple. In fact, Zillow, the National Association of Realtors, and Fannie Mae, the Federal National Mortgage Bank, all actually predict home prices to slightly increase over 2020. So why is that? Well, I think there's a few factors you actually have to take into consideration. And the first being interest rates. As you can see, interest rates are at an all-time low. This graph doesn't show all the way back, but take my word for it, past, 1975, that they're at all-time lows. So you have interest rates, but interest rates alone aren't going to keep the price up when you have demand coming down. But I think the other thing is supply. Supply is actually lower than, say, 2008 going into the Great Recession, where home builders were churning out new houses and there was a huge supply. Home builders have still not really caught up to that big loss of home production over the last 10 years. So I think we came into this with a pretty moderate supply, and you now have, because of the unique nature of coronavirus, you have sellers pulling their houses off the market right now, further reducing supply because they don't want buyers rummaging through their home that might get them sick, and basically they're quarantining. So I think the supply is going to make a really big difference here on pricing, and that combined with interest rates is going to be the driver to at least keep prices neutral, if not slightly increase, like some of the big forecasters are saying. So that wraps up the Builders Confidence Index. If you have any other questions, please leave me a comment or shoot me a direct message, and I'll see you next time.